Hello and welcome to Space Shark Teaches. I'm Sean, owner and lead developer of Space Shark Studios, and in this series we're going to be teaching Godot. In this lesson we're going to be cleaning up our scripts and making sure that everything is working as we expect for jumping, falling, moving left and right. The first thing we're going to do is actually add something to the scene. You can right click and do duplicate or hold down Control D. Move this up a bit, bring it to the side and make it taller. Then Control D, move that new one to the side, make it shorter. Now you can see we have some little stair steps that we can take. This is going to be important when I'm showing you what we're trying to fix and how we're fixing it. So let's click the little script here and open up the scripts that are controlling everything. So as you saw before, we have an issue where jump is not quite working the way that we want it to because we're immediately jumping down. We can try and set jump higher, but that's still not really working the way we want it, right? So we can fix this by thinking about what move and slide actually is. So this is a linear velocity. Before we were dealing with how many steps you take every frame, and now we are dealing with how many steps you take every second. Another part of that is move and collide would happen instantly. This move and slide puts it all together until the end of the frame, or the end of the physics cycle, which means we need something to represent that. To do that, let's make a new variable, spelled correctly, as movement velocity. We're going to right click that, and this is going to be a vector 2 with 0, 0 as the default value. We are not going to export this. It's going to be an internal variable, and we're going to be setting it as well as using it throughout. All of these variables so far, speed, gravity, and jump speed, have just been used as a reference for everything else in here. They are defined by you in the scene. Movement velocity, on the other hand, is going to be updating throughout. And I can show you where by making a movement function. And similar to how we've been doing this, where we have move and slide, movement is going to take our current movement and it's going to move and slide. We're going to set it to use 3 default args and then set 0, -1, to show that this is the direction of the normal, just like before. As always, we need to go ahead and add this onto the end. And as of right now, this doesn't do anything, which is expected because we haven't added anything to it yet. All these places where we have move and slide are going to be replaced by this movement velocity though. And that's the important thing here. So to do that, you erase the old one. When you're dragging in, if you see down at the bottom here, it has this hold control to drop a variable setter. If you hold control, you can now set the current movement velocity. So just to walk through what's happening here, we are in move right. So when move right comes up, it's going to come in and say, all right, I want you to set the current movement velocity to this speed in the right direction. And then at the end, when movement is called, I want you to call move and slide. All we're doing is moving this move and slide function to one spot to make it easier to deal with. We can do this everywhere else we have move and slide. Oops. Remember to hold control when you drop. And then we'll do this in gravity. And jump. Hold control, move it over, and set it. So now gravity is setting movement velocity, jump is setting movement velocity, move left, move right, and they are all coming together to call move and slide. So this looks like it's working right, except you just saw something, there's something not quite right. So if you hold left and then hold right, you go right. If you hold right, you'll keep going before falling off the screen. That's because each time we are actually setting movement velocity. And that's not really what we want to do. We actually want to be adding to the current move velocity. To do this, well, that's pretty easy. You drag in movement velocity, and you add this new velocity. Let's go ahead and move everything here back a bit. And now let's walk through what's going on. We're making a new vector using speed as the x value. We're negating it because we are moving left. So we are moving this way. Or I guess this way. And then we are going to be adding that to the current movement velocity. If we're standing still, that's going to be 0, 0. If we're already moving to the left, that is going to add it to whatever the left movement is. If we're moving to the right, it's going to add it to that. Either way, we are adding it to this movement velocity, which seems to be what we want. We'll do the same thing to right. So move these back, pull this in, and then add the two together before setting it to movement velocity. Now that is fine when you click it. And that seems to be working. So we've added movement velocity, or we've added speed to movement velocity. And each one of these, whoops, will go and set it. Let's go ahead and do the same with gravity. And jump. So take that, add it to the existing, set it there, and then one last time pull in the movement velocity, add it to this jump speed, and set it there. Okay, that's not right. So let's go ahead and turn this down real quick so that you can see what's going on. When we move left and right, you can see, well, one, it got stuck on the edge. So let's go ahead and move our character down over here. You can see it speeds up, and if you let go, your player will just kind of drift along like it's on ice. The reason for that is because if you look, we're adding. We're always adding. We're never setting anything back to 0. And that's not good because every frame we don't want the velocity to increase. So we're going to make a new function called reset movement. And in this one, we are just going to set the movement every frame or every physics cycle to 0, 0. Let's make sure that gets added to the physics process. And now, let's make sure and add this back to 300. Now we're moving at a good rate again. The problem being, gravity does not look like it's working right now, and we still have the jump problem. So we're back to square one, right? Except we now have this movement variable, which is a lot easier to deal with. So even though we're at square one, even though it looks like we're at square one, we're a lot closer. And a lot of it rests in this reset movement. We don't actually want to reset all the movement. We only want to reset the movement in the x direction. So we can fix this by dragging in movement velocity, making a new vector 2 that has 1 for the x value and 0 for the y value, and then multiplying them together. What this will do is it'll say, all right, how fast are we moving in the x direction right now? Or I guess, oops, the opposite. How fast are we moving in the y direction right now? Let's keep that, but let's reset how fast we are moving in the x direction so that we can stop if we're not going forward anymore, or continue going forward, or go backwards. So this now works, but the gravity just keeps growing. And that's because we're not resetting gravity if we're on the floor. We're also not going to be able to have jump work anymore, which is not what we want. In the next lesson, we'll take the last step necessary to get jump working as we want. That's going to involve a lot of conditions on if we're on the floor and what to reset when, as well as learning why it's important to structure the ordering correctly, because having jump and gravity in different spots or reset movement in different areas can have a huge effect on if your game works how you expect it to work. That's it for this lesson. Thank you for watching, and this has been Sean with Space Shark Teaches.